What's up, everyone? This is In Camp Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Hepler. Today on the show, we have a special guest straight from the National Deer Association, Megan Plete. Maybe you have heard of her, maybe you haven't. I think you probably have. And if you didn't, it's because you didn't look at who the author's name was on the thing you were reading about hunting or fishing. Because she's got articles just about everywhere. Man, she's written for so many different publications, and she really, truly has a passion for people and getting people involved in hunting and fishing and just making a better overall world. We're going to get to hear about all the different things she's involved in, so I won't spoil any of that fun. But man, I think she's got something really special going on, um, especially for young ladies. It's so cool to see the stuff that she's has happening, but really to see um, her own growth in hunting and the outdoors. I hope you enjoy this show. I know it was a great conversation. I had a lot of fun. This is In Camp Podcast. I'm going to start this by saying the last couple weeks, I've been pretty jealous of your smallmouth fishing because
Yeah, I've been having
y-
fun.
yeah, you've been on the lake quite a bit.
Mhm. All over the place.
Did you grow up smallmouth fishing?
A little bit here and there, smallmouth, largemouth, on lots of panfish with my dad, stuff like that. So, I mean, just all kinds of stuff, really.
Yeah. New York is the best place to do it too.
It is. People don't understand. A lot of people that aren't from New York think of New York and they're like, oh, New York. But New York is such a sleeper state. There's a ton of different waterways, there's a ton of different regions. Like, if you're in the northern New York, it's an entirely different place than if you're in southern New York or west or east. People don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bassmasters spend a lot of time there on like Cayuga and St. Lawrence, which is I hope everybody knows about smallmouth fishing in the St. Lawrence by now because it's incredible. But there's so many little lakes too that you can do really well in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are thousands upon thousands of lakes in New York that you could probably smallmouth fish and be successful. And it's like one of those things that like you can talk about it all we want, but like people don't. They gotta go do it. Like there's nothing like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, for sure. It is definitely a special place. The next thing that I wanted to talk about you as an icebreaker is I remember last year, it might have been this past fall, you made a video about being afraid to walk in the woods in the dark. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah, and then I had posted it on the Artemis forum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I feel like all my buddies who also hunt are like, "Yep, yep, that's me."
It's legitimate too.
Yeah,
Like, I can understand why walking alone in the dark is an actual barrier for people, especially when they're brand new to hunting and they have never in their life had a situation where they would have to be alone in the dark in the woods. So, I mean, I've been hunting for my entire adult life and it still, gives you the heebie-jeebies. So I understand why anyone would not want to do it. We have to
yeah.
do it, but I get
You
it.
you have to do it. So, there's probably so if you're gonna give somebody one tip about walking in the woods in the dark right now, after posting that video, what's the tip gonna be?
I guess I've got like two little tidbits I would share. The first one would be like an actual hard tip where like the less you use a flashlight, the better off you're going to be because if you let your eyes adjust to the darkness, you get attuned to it in the way that like like an animal would in their natural environment. So if you can avoid a headlamp, if you can avoid a flashlight using them, don't use them. Of course, carry them for safety. And then the second thing is more of a soft tip where it's one of those things where you have to do it. So feel the fear, be afraid, let yourself like be afraid because when you're afraid, your senses are heightened and you're more attuned to your surroundings, but don't let that fear hold you back from doing it.
Yeah, that's perfect. I agree with that. It's kinda like the first day, like, the opener, you're a little bit on the nervous side, and by let's say we're talking about deer hunting, the rut, you're ready to go, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a good point. Walking in with a flashlight can really mess you up, and it's important, like, obviously, if you're gonna climb or something like that, you should probably flick that thing on at that point, but try to get
Yeah.
in as far as you can. That's pretty valid. So, as an introduction, I have on the podcast today Miss Megan Pleat. Yes?
Yes, wow, on the first try, a lot of people hack that.
Perfect. So you're no stranger to the outdoors, but I really want to know a little bit about your background. Tell people about you.
Sure, absolutely. So, I am from upstate New York, born and raised, and then when I grew up, I went other places and then came back to raise my daughter. But while I was growing up here in New York, I did a lot of fishing, camping, hunting alongside my dad, kind of like beside in his footsteps, I guess. I trailed along with my dad. He was always a sportsman, and when he had his first kiddo, which was me, he had wanted a boy, but he got a girl, and that was okay. Like, he still brought me along, and I'm grateful for it because I got that education early on. And I loved it. I loved Barbies and stuff, but I loved taking my Barbie pole and going fishing with my dad. So I used to catch all kinds of panfish, and we used to go bass fishing, a little trout fishing. And then when I got older, we would go for lake trout and things like that, camping every summer. When I got old enough to get my hunting license in New York, I did, and then I would tag along with my dad and my grandpa before he passed, and I'd go hunting, and I got my first deer, I think, at age 16 or 17, and, I learned a lot from the men in my life, and I appreciate being brought along as the only kinda girl in that crowd. But then when I got to be an adult, I did, the grown-up thing where I went to college and I was busy for years establishing my own life, and then I circled back to hunting as an adult with a gap in between, and it kind of came, from it with a different perspective as an adult than I did when I was a teenager, where I wanted to learn things from a female's perspective, and it's a little bit different. It's the same, principles, but women learn a little bit differently, and we're a little bit more petite mostly. Our proportions are different, and our strengths and weaknesses are different. So when I came back into hunting, I realized that although I had all of the benefit of the men around me teaching me, I didn't have much of a community around me of women that were interested in the same things that I was interested in. And so I kind of took it a step further and was connecting with other outdoors women in this space, and then became an Artemis ambassador and started connecting with other women and making space for other women to feel comfortable in the same space that I felt comfortable in, and it kind of just, grew from there.
That's so cool. Have you had the opportunity to be mentored by a woman?
I have not really, believe it or not, and, I have never actually given that any consideration. I've learned most everything from men.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you can take what you've learned from the men in your life and apply it, 'cause it is like, we do, like, men and women do think differently, and I know when I take my wife on a hike, I'll say stupid things like, she'll be like, "How much," like, "Dude, I'm ready for a hoagie now," or something, and she'll say, "How much further do we gotta go here?" And we're already in 5 miles, and I'll be like, "Oh, it's just another 2 miles as the crow flies." She hates when I say that because she
We're
knows she's
almost
in it.
there.
Yeah, she knows we're in it for, like, another 3 hours,
Mhm.
and I think it's so cool that you're taking, what you know about the ladies and kind of trying to do your own mentorship from there because there's not enough of that.
Yeah, and I have learned, and not everybody is the same. A lot of
Mhm.
women do understand a ton of stuff about the outdoors, and they've got
Yeah.
backgrounds where they understand jargon and stuff. But one of the things I've learned is that a lot of really good intentioned male mentors speak in an intermediate way to beginner level learners. So
Yeah.
there's like an information gap where you have to approach it as if like a complete blank slate, no jargon, actually using words that are meant for it and like explaining things in a very basic way. And then just um women, a lot of women, not all women, of course, but they just have a different understanding of space and time and
Mhm.
like what we the strength involved in a lot of these activities it's different, so we need to have clear perspectives going into it so we don't get overwhelmed, and so that we there's some kind of modification sometimes if we need it, things like that. It's like a lot of times because I'm like 5'1", I'm a pretty short little person, and a lot of like things that I use are either youth model or some women's models of stuff are better now and adaptable,
Sure.
but, there's little tweaks for us, and we can still succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think there would be any advantage to you having learned from a woman?
I do, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would have loved that opportunity. I think I would have not that I would have learned quicker, maybe, but it would have been really nice to have a different perspective growing up. There were times that I didn't understand things that were explained to me because they weren't explained to me in a way I could understand, believe it or not.
sure.
So it sounds ironic, but yeah, I think there's a lot of benefit to speaking woman to woman when they're trying to learn new skills.
Yeah, and I think the as a small kid, it's easy. You kind of learn some of it by diffusion, right? Like my dad, when he would take me out, if he was using jargon and you're a 4 or 5 year old little boy, what is the first question they all ask is, "What's that? Why? What's that? Why?" So
Yeah.
they, but when you get older, you don't want to ask why because it's not the right question. You just pretend like you know. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, and I can think back to a lot of times when my dad was so sincere in trying to teach me something, either about like how to set this up or how to like do this activity or whatever. And he tried hard to explain to me, you know, tactically how to do the thing. And it was like, phew, like way over my head. I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about, but I don't want to be embarrassed. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
nodding and smiling, and then I'm on my own trying to do it, and I'm like, "I don't know what he said."
yeah. I know when I take my daughter fishing, I'll try my hardest to like teach her this is how you cast. Like, do it this way, do it this way. And that her little mind, she just has her own way to figure it out. Now, she's not, she gets, she gets bored. Sometimes she wants to sit on the boat and read a book. That's fine with me. But, and I have to allow that because I remember being a little boy and be like, no, get up and pick the rod up and fish. And I was a little boy. So I did because you wanted to, you know? And it's, sometimes it was catching frogs or whatever, but she will learn how to do those things on her own, like casting a rod. I just
Mhm.
need to show her once, and then she can figure
Yeah.
that out.
Absolutely. I've got my own 6-year-old daughter, and my perspective is very similar. And,
Uh-huh.
it's more important to me to instill a love of the outdoors in general than a passion for, say, fishing or hunting
Yeah.
specifically.
Mhm.
So, a lot of times we'll go out, say, in the kayak, and, we'll bring a pole. But if she's in the mood to just kind of explore the lily pads and look for frogs or just like stick her hand in the water and feel what that feels like and enjoy the sunshine, that's what we'll do because I want her to enjoy the experience and not feel pressure to perform. I want
Yeah.
like the long term, I want her to find joy and peace outdoors rather than pressure from me.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you have to with any kids
Mhm.
because the last thing you wanna do is make them feel like being outside is a chore,
Right.
and
Exactly.
eventually they usually wanna do what you do, especially if you're having fun doing it, you know?
Oh yeah.
If you're catching a bunch of little panfish or whatever, eventually they're gonna want a piece of that.
Yeah,
But if
I
it's
found that to be true.
yeah, for me, if my daughter never wants to hunt or doesn't really wanna fish, but she enjoys the outdoors and she can speak to those things because her dad does it, I'm okay with that,
Definitely.
and she loves to eat it, so there's that.
Yeah, and that's how I've approached a lot of the hunting portion of it is that, deer is food. We go hunting because we enjoy it. We enjoy the experience, but also because we like to eat venison. So
Yeah,
it's funny because she'll look at a deer and she'll think like, how can we eat that? And then if a deer is harvested, I always include her in the blood trailing process and then the actual, breaking down process. And she's not skeeved out by gore or the blood that comes with it. And she's 6, so, she will be influenced at school and by her peers and stuff. And I'm sure she'll have some moments where she's like, oh, this is terrible. And I've already heard a little bit about like, oh, but like Bambi. And like, we got to kind of push through that. But she has a foundation where she does understand that like hunting equals food at home and wild game and like the cycle of life that goes with that. So, I hope she enjoys it and keeps that mindset as she grows older.
yeah. If friends had mentioned the Bambi thing to her at school, have you heard her rebuttal?
She talks about eating it, which I I don't know how she talks about it peer to peer, but at home she says, like, I tell them that we like to eat it. I'm like, okay.
I gotta tell you this story. We had when my daughter was 4 or 5, I shot a Jake, um, in May, and I got home before she went to daycare. She was going to daycare at, like, 7:30 in the morning. I shot the turkey at, like, 6 or something, 6:30, and I got home and "Daddy, I wanna see the meat." She loves that part. So we're like, open the breast, taking the breast out, and she's there, like, poking, checking it out. "Oh, dad, it looks like it's gonna be so good." And she got to daycare and she tells all the kids as soon as she walks through the door, "My dad shot a turkey." And, like,
Oh.
she wanted her friends to see the picture of it. My wife, like, shows her the picture of, me with the turkey and Avonlea with the turkey. And, uh, her friends all started crying and like,
Oh boy.
"Oh, is the turkey dead?" And she's like, "Yep, and we're gonna eat it." You know?
Oh, I love that.
So the daycare teacher had to tell my wife, like, "Maybe next time don't show the picture."
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I get it. We try to make it a big, like, fun experience too when we're eating, like, because I got turkeys this spring and got to try out some pretty cool recipes, and she was all into
Yeah,
it, like, "Oh, turkey, like, mommy got this one," and, but it's one of those things where, like, and I'm lucky, she's lucky because her school is pretty rural, but, she will still encounter that, and I'm aware of that, and we'll encounter it wherever we go, but, um yeah, I can relate to that 100%. I mean, she was in kindergarten talking about eating deer and shooting
yeah,
deer, and I was like, "Oh god, here we go."
yeah. Yeah, and I think it's important to start them out with, like, I mean, it's normal, right? The blood in the guts is not really disgusting, you know what I
Right.
mean? So I think it is important for them to see that early because that's something that could bother them later, but kinda desensitizing to that kinda thing early is good.
Mhm, and there's
Um,
hope though, if our kids do have a phase where they're, like, totally, like, wigged out by it. I had that phase myself when I was, like, 11, 12, like, preteen, and I remember
okay.
my dad, he shot a couple coyotes, one year, and he was super excited about it, super proud, and I was into it for a long time, and he showed them to me, and I was like, "Oh," crying, and, like, "They look like dogs," and the whole
Yeah,
thing, and I was, like, very, very dramatic about it, but it just goes to show, like, kids go through phases, but it's not the end of the world.
yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, what about you did mention Artemis, so you're an ambassador for them.
I am. So I'm a New York ambassador for Artemis Sportswomen, which is an initiative of the National Wildlife Federation. I've been
Okay.
with the program for 3 years now. I'm on my second term. It's all over the country and it's growing. We're like in a growth phase. So it's an exciting thing to be a part of. And it's all women ambassadors, and it's like a place where women can connect with other women and feel like not judged and feel supported, and we learn a lot about advocacy and legislation and like how to be a leader in the conservation space. So it's a good program.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Do you run a lot of events with them?
I do. I used to run more events than I do now, but I'm still pretty active. I've got a women's crossbow hunt coming up in November, which
Oh,
is
cool.
mentored. Yeah, it's a great, really immersive program. And it's in Naples, New York this year. It's in like a different portion of New York every year. And it's completely, the goal is to have 100% women mentors to 100% women mentees. Last year, we fell a little bit short with like an 80 percent mentor ratio, but it's an immersive weekend where women learn how to shoot crossbows. They learn about deer hunting, like, beyond the regular deer education or hunter education course. They connect with other women. We have hunting time. We have a little bit of scouting time. We have some downtime to just kinda, like, eat and chat with each other and tell hunting stories and stuff like that, but they come as basically strangers on Friday, and they leave on Sunday afternoon, as, friends and connected to each other, so it's been good so far. I'm looking forward to it again.
Yeah, that's great. So, there's a couple things you said there that I'd love to talk about. I am not a crossbow person. However, when it comes to hunting and fishing, there's a lot of technology now, and there's good reasons for all of it in some aspect. And I think that that kind of thing, especially getting any new hunter into hunting, a crossbow is a really good tool. If they're serious about it, there's a really good chance they're gonna, dive down the archery channel. But what are your thoughts on crossbows when it comes to that kind of thing?
So I will start by saying, and acknowledge that crossbow is a very heated, controversial topic in New York
Sure.
State, where I am based.
Yeah.
And I will also just put out there that my regular employer, the National Deer Association, we have a stance on crossbow, and we support the full inclusion of crossbow for an archery season equipment.
Yeah.
And then also, I've been involved with several events that kind of center around crossbow. And I have been very impressed with how easy it is for beginners specifically to learn to use a crossbow.
Mhm.
In the kind of beginner sphere that I utilize the crossbows with, it makes a lot of sense because sometimes if you don't have any background at all with firearms and like hunting, learning how to shoot a gun right off the bat can be super intimidating. And
Mhm.
that's the reason that we go with crossbows at these particular events. It
Yeah.
doesn't require a ton of like, people think, oh, it requires a ton of like body strength, upper body strength. And it does for sure, but like not, it's still beginner friendly
Yeah.
and it's still usable and it's a tool like anything else. It's a tool. So it's been good as far as using it for beginners. I think that there's a time and a place for all implements, and I think that ultimately the bigger issue, rather than having hunters like at each other's throats about crossbow specifically, is that we keep in mind that hunting and unity, keeping like hunters supporting other hunters no matter what implement they use is more important than arguing about the implement because there's the spectrum, right? So we've got our 10% passionate hunters, or we support everything related to hunting and we want to ensure hunting for future generations. We got 10% of the population. And
Mhm.
then we've got on the other spectrum 10% of like the PETA crowd, super anti-hunting, don't understand hunting the way that we do. They don't have a background, but they have a voice, right? And
Mhm.
though, so of that 20%, we've got the other 80% of uneducated folks in the middle that don't really have an opinion about hunting, but can be swayed either direction. So if we as hunters look like we're bickering amongst ourselves and we're ripping each other out apart in like a really nasty fashion, that doesn't look good, right? That's not a good look.
Yeah.
So if we want
100%.
to, yeah, if we want to ensure that hunting in general is protected for future generations, we have to kind of keep a front facing mind and think about hunting as a future and in general rather than ripping each other apart.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I'm not a crossbow person myself. I own one, and it's for when my daughter is like, "Hey, I wanna go hunting."
Mhm.
I know she's not gonna be able to pull a 45-pound bow or whatever the legal thing is when she's old enough to go. I want her to have the opportunity, and I think that's a great my dad is older and he won't use a crossbow. I wish he would, but he won't archery hunt
Mhm.
anymore because,
Oh.
and I'm kinda like, "Dad, like, it's warmer, you won't you like it a lot more," and
Yeah.
he's not there yet, but I think there's a time and a place for those things, so I would never try to take that away from those people. That being said, I think if you really love to get into hunting, you're probably gonna wanna go with a vertical bow at some point in time just because there is something so unique to it?
I agree. And I personally, I don't own a crossbow. I own a
Mhm.
vertical bow. I've never, other than my mentored events, I've never hunted with a crossbow. So I can see both sides of the spectrum. What I like about vertical bow hunting is that it's a challenge and I have to keep a certain degree of physical fitness to be able to perform in that way, which feels good, that you can
Yeah.
harvest animals that way. And for people who are able bodied, it makes a lot of sense. And then it's the same kind of from your perspective. I've watched my dad age. I've watched him get older. I've watched him go through cancer. I've watched him deal with arthritis, and now he hunts with a crossbow, a compound.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that it has crossbows have a time and a place in the cycle of life, and then the life cycle of hunting.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And it goes with all the technology right now, and I think the one thing that we do need to be careful of, when something gets implemented, taking it away is not a good thing. Because that's like you said, that usually ends up tending to be the bittering and shooting holes in your own boat kinda thing. I do think before tech when technology seemed to be getting, more advanced and there's no position on them, some kind of position needs to be made. Because right now forward-facing sonar is like a huge topic, and it's like I feel like what you said, it's a tool. You should use it like one and not a catch-all. Same thing with cell cam, same thing, all this stuff that's coming out.
Exactly.
Um, Drones is another thing, especially
Mhm.
in your realm, I'm sure NDA, do they have a position on that already too?
You know, I'm not 100% sure that we do. There's so many things that we're constantly drafting positions about. If
Yeah.
anybody is super curious, they can verify on our website, the deerassociation.com. There is a tab that goes down with all of our official position statements.
Oh, cool.
Everything that we stand for is right there on the website.
Yeah, that's great. So when you're doing one of these mentor things with Artemis, you talked about scouting. How does a scouting workshop look like for you guys there?
So a lot of our scouting and our blind placement takes place, the majority takes place before any mentees or mentors step foot. So everything is placed out up until like last year we left, I think 2 or 3 blinds that still had to get placed. So with the remaining places that had to go, we gathered it was optional too. Like some people aren't comfy or don't want to like hike any more than they have to.
Uh-huh.
So the people who did want to learn about scouting and picking out a hunting location, where you're going to put your blind, etc. They joined for the hike. We have, I use Onyx. Some people use different apps, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So we had looked ahead of time at like geography and what looked good, etc. Marked out some locations. So we walk them through the hunting preserve, or well, we use the Nature Conservancy property, so
Okay.
it's open to hunting to certain people who are allowed. And so we walked them through on the way to our location, show them deer sign where deer had been through, because it seems obvious to us, but it's not obvious to the untrained eye. So on
Uh-huh.
our way, we do that. We once we get to our hunting location, we explain why we chose this location, what makes this location any better than a location 200 yards to the east or whatever. Then we put up our blind, which is a learning activity all on its own, especially for people who have never done that before.
Yeah.
Show them how to brush it in, show them like get in there and like go look through and where would you be looking, or like what are the most likely places that a deer is going to be coming through, things like that. How to kind of conduct yourself, which is seems again, it seems obvious to us, but it's not. You have
No.
to every single thing has to be broken down into like micro steps. And then while we're doing all this, we're pointing out little things, how to move your feet if you want to be stealthy, how to conduct yourself in nature to not make a scene, stuff like that. Um, yeah, so the whole thing is kind of an immersive experience where we teach and do at the same time.
Yeah, that's great. And when you're breaking it down real simple for people like this, it's so easy to just take advantage of the sign that you grew up learning from your dad. You know what I mean? I think that's really key to keep it all like this is a deer track. This is what it looks like, and then even talking about size of tracks or how they're there's so much to talk about there. But how does it differ from your own scouting?
Um, that's
Are
a
you a
great
very are
question.
you a very detailed scouter when it comes to deer hunting?
Not really. I'm spoiled, right? So
Uh-huh.
I have a lot of places that I will hunt year after year, and I'm really, really spoiled because I do have a lot of family property that I can access. That really the scouting is kind of done for me. The only
Yeah.
thing I will say is I got into public land bow hunting. This was it this fall or the fall before? I guess the fall before. And that was a whole new experience for me because I had been so spoiled on family property that I didn't really have to kind of look for myself and learn things. And so when I was kind of going, I had learned to use Onyx for the first time by
Uh-huh.
myself too, looking for like ridge lines and kind of like funnels where it would make sense for deer to travel, things like that. And I learned a lot just to be like paying better attention to patterns and
Uh-huh.
movement and places where they could forage and food sources and like where's the water, stuff like that. And I will say, I didn't harvest a deer on the public land that I was bow hunting last year, but I saw a lot of deer sign and I saw a giant deer that I didn't get a shot opportunity for, which was okay. I mean, it wasn't okay. I was pretty disappointed,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's gonna have to be okay, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so I'm learning a lot more about scouting and stuff as I'm going the last couple of years. It's been kind of too easy as far as having family property.
Yeah. I mean, there's a time and a place for both, right?
Yeah.
When you're ready to fill that freezer, I'm ready for some family friendly farms, you know?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah, get some dough,
yeah,
then you're gonna
let's
be
put
eating
them in there.
good.
The thing that's so cool, and I wanna see what you think about this, is when you're on public land, there's no limit. Like, you can just go wherever you want, and if you decide you don't really like the area, you can walk another 10 miles, you know?
Absolutely, and one other thing as far as, like, scouting and public land and stuff, is I did also have an opportunity to learn, a little bit about tracking in the snow this past winter, which was something that I really haven't dug into, believe it or not, living in New York,
Yeah.
especially, like, in the Adirondack region where it's a very popular method for hunting. I hadn't
Uh-huh.
done much of it, but I did get an opportunity to go this past winter, and it was really cool. 'Cause I've heard so much about it because I do attend or I work a lot of expos, and a lot of expos have seminars, and, in this region, a lot of the seminars are about deer tracking in the snow. So I've heard a
Yeah.
ton of information about it and never applied it, but it was cool to see, like, the difference of the tracks and the width of the stagger and, like, these places where these buck are just, like, thrashing an area and they're eating everything, and, like, it's almost like that deer has gotta be so close, things are so fresh, and you
Mhm.
can go for miles and miles, and it was really cool. I didn't get a chance to shoot anything that time either, but it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, it's fun to do. I We don't get a lot of snow in this, well, in Pennsylvania in general. But during the rifle season this year, that was the first time I ever hunted the opener in snow. So getting to really just walk around with a gun is that was fun, real fun.
Yeah,
So what is your I guess since we're talking about public land deer hunting, and I haven't done like a whole lot. This is a pretty general podcast when it comes
yeah,
to outdoors and hunting. Obvious deer hunting is by far my favorite, and but I don't want it to be just a deer hunting podcast. So I haven't done a whole lot of deer hunting talk. So we'll talk deer hunting a little bit.
yeah.
um when it so What's your I guess when you're are you doing, like, the mobile thing? Are you setting up blinds? Are you using a saddle? Are you doing that kinda stuff?
Well, it's kinda different depending on, where I'm hunting, what I'm doing. So I do a lot of, I don't hunt by a saddle. I would love to learn saddle hunting. It's on my to-do list, but I have not done it yet.
Uh-huh,
So a lot of it is pre-scouting a location, hanging a tree stand, like a metal ladder stand, and then hunting from that. Or sometimes it's hiking in if it's not like the location that you don't think that's going to be hot. Hike in, pop a blind, doing it that way.
uh-huh,
There's been times too when I didn't wanna lug a blind, and I didn't think that, like, the tree stand, the metal, hang on would be an effective tactic. So I have hiked in and then, like, sat against the bottom of a tree and just did it that way.
uh-huh,
And it's depending on the season, like, early in the season, bow hunting, a lot more mobile of what I'm doing. And then muzzleloader is pretty much I've got some good muzzleloader spots that I will hunt over and over again, and they're usually successful spots. And then rifle season, a lot of times I'll take my daughter, so I will preset a blind, and then I'll bring her in, and then I'll have like snacks and like a little buddy heater or whatever, and she's cozy. We're on runways, so there's a good chance we're going to see something. And then I've got a couple metal ladder stands for rifle season as well, but it's one of the things that I keep coming. It's funny you said the saddle hunting and I do some climbers too.
uh-huh.
I love a climber.
Yeah, they're
I
comfortable.
really yeah, actually it's probably my favorite tactic. The only thing is that I haven't found a good climber that is easy for me to hike on my back because
Mhm.
I'm just super short and most of them are so long that they extend from like my shoulders to almost my ankles. So to hike them in, yeah, it's just like that's the one hang up that I keep coming back to. So if I could find a better climber to utilize, I would be using a climber way more. But anyways, I really do wanna get into saddle hunting because I find a lot of times where I'm not feeling super great about the hang-on stands that I've got. Like, they're good for a couple days, and then, like, it doesn't seem like they're effective anymore, the deer aren't
Mhm.
there anymore. So I wanna get into saddle hunting because I do wanna explore being a little bit more mobile and kinda proactive.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the it's not overlooked in public land hunting anymore, I don't think, and there is something to be said about just being able to go to a spot and climb straight up a tree. So, I think there's a time and a place, but being able to if you're there one day and you have a tree picked out and you climb up that tree with a saddle and you see the deer, 50 yards away, 80 yards away, they're just out of bow range. Tomorrow, you can go to right where they were. And if they know you were this far away, there's a good chance they'll be somewhere in the area still. Even if maybe they haven't picked up your scent yet, or that's just where they are. There's so much opportunity to just bounce around.
Absolutely. I have actually that exact instance is one of the reasons that I wanna get into saddle hunting because I've had exactly that, where I've been on public land and a deer has come through and it's like, it's just too far. It's just not gonna work. And there are other opportunities, but then, if you're gonna, like, bring in a climber or if you're gonna try to, like, reset something like a ladder stand, or it's not a good option to kinda just prop against the bottom of the tree there because 'cause they're totally gonna see you.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I next year, I'm gonna try.
Yeah. It's definitely worth it, and it is the equipment's a lot easier, you get the right set of sticks and the right saddle. Like you said, climbers are great, they're really comfortable, but somebody that's your height, yeah, that's hard to carry in, the saddle will be way easier.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't wanna transition too hard, but I saw on your Instagram that you, you're a licensed guide in New York, is that right?
That is true. Yep, I got my guide's license, guess it was 2024, I think I've
Oh,
had
cool.
it, maybe 23, it's been a little while. Yeah, I'm super proud of it. It's, something that
Yeah.
it's been on my bucket list for a long time, and my great-grandpa was a Adirondack guide up in the Adirondacks, and it's one of those things that, like, meant a lot to me. I
Mhm.
haven't done a ton of paid guiding at all, but I definitely used it, I guess, in a mentorship type of way. It makes me
Sure.
feel good, and I feel like knowing like having something to prove my certifications and to like say like I have earned this, like I know what I'm doing, makes my mentees feel more comfortable that I'm not just like Joe Schmo off the street trying to like teach them stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one thing that I'm really glad that I went and got. I'd like to utilize it even more in the future.
Yeah. And then I guess the other part to that is you're obviously your biggest career is your outdoor writing. Is that what you
Mhm.
started out doing?
Yes, that's how I landed in the outdoor industry, the community and the spirit here is I started so I've got my background goes way back as far as like I have a degree in journalism. So when I was in my first job, I was working in a newspaper and I got started doing an outdoor column locally for that newspaper. And then that column kind of snowballed into like more outdoor writing and like bylines and like local magazines and regional publications and then statewide publications. And then I started writing with Outdoor News, which is a statewide publication, but we have multiple states. So we've got New York Outdoor News, of course, but then we've got Pennsylvania and Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio. I'm missing a bunch of them. But so Outdoor News opened a lot of doors for me. And then I started picking up bylines in like Meat Eater, Harvesting Nature. I'm going to miss a ton of them. But yeah, that's how I landed here. And then when I started talking to folks, doing interviews. One of my favorite things to do is feature profiles where I really dig into somebody's story and kind of shine a light on what they're doing.
Uh-huh.
Making those connections kind of opened other doors for me where I learned about really cool organizations in the industry and really cool people and businesses and just what's going on here. And it was like one thing led to the next. And then I just kind of kept going along that path. And now I feel like I'm fairly well connected. I do a lot of, I still work with outdoor news. And then my regular day job is the National Deer Association. Plus, I still do outdoor writing. I hold down the women's column in Trapper's Post.
Nice.
I'm doing editing for Lady Outdoor Lifestyles magazine and all kinds of really cool things. So Yeah, it's amazing what like one thing. So following my passion for the written word and journalism, and then combining that with my passion for the outdoors can just leads you down a path you never expected.
Yeah. I dabble a little bit in writing, and I it is such a it's a cool connection because then when you're doing that writing, it really makes you think about why you love it, and that should hopefully translate into whatever you're writing. How does that work for you?
Yeah, one of my favorite questions to ask everybody, not everybody, but most people, if I think of it, when I'm doing a feature profile or something related, is what is it about either the outdoors or hunting or whatever their like specific passion is? What is it about the outdoors that keeps you coming back, that keeps you doing it?
Mhm,
And it's a question that a lot of people don't stop to ask themselves very often. They just do it because they like to do it. But when they say, why though? Like, why do I like to do this? Why am I doing this? Because these things take a lot of time, a lot of
mhm,
money, a lot of times because we have to buy gear and we have to do all these things. And we do have to make choices. Like, if we're going to be good at whatever we choose to do, hunting, say, we have to do a lot of practice and we have to make sure that we're sharp. And there's so much that goes into it. So, yeah, it's interesting to see why people continue to do what they do. For me, and I've asked this question to so many people, I never asked it to myself until just like last year. So why do I keep hunting? Why do I keep pursuing the outdoors? For me, it landed on the challenge of pushing myself to do a little bit better and to work a little bit harder and to learn things that maybe I was intimidated to learn at one point. And I thrive on kind of having a reason to try harder. So that's a lot of what keeps me doing it. And then also the connection, being connected to the outdoors is beautiful and peaceful and makes us feel healthy, of course.
mhm.
But being connected to other people, especially women, and like I really thrive on helping people learn. It just feels good for me. And then the connection to yourself, because ultimately, no matter who is around you in the sphere, if you're hunting or fishing, you really can only rely on yourself to do the things that is required to succeed in those things. So the connection to myself is one of the things that keeps me coming back.
Yeah, that's great, and that's actually a question I've been asking people on this podcast a lot, like, what keeps you coming back? What made you hooked the first time around? And you when you think back to that stuff, it's like, you might even have to just look back at pictures to remember things. Because I can think of a picture that I always there my brother's sitting in the background with a net and a bucket, and there I am with, like, a little Zebco and a bluegill, And
Yeah.
it's those little things that just kept growing. Which sounds like it's the same for you, you've really put a lot of thought into that question. So being able to push that on, not push it on, but being able to share that is so important because there's so much of this like social media stuff that can really negatively impact, there's like if you're talking about women in hunting, there's the huntress and the dudes in hunting, there's like the I grind all day and I'm super tough. Where
Mhm.
when it comes down to it, we just all really want to have a good time and all love the same thing for a good reason, not
Yeah.
for the self promotion type stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot to it as far as like people get kind of hung up. People experience people mostly that we get not we get hung up with the biggest buck, right? Or
Mhm.
the biggest fish, the heaviest fish, or the most, being the biggest baddest person in the sphere. But it's never been about that for me, and people can look at my Instagram and see, like, there's not a ton of big bucks on there, and, like, I'm just as happy fishing for lake trout as I am for panfish because
Uh-huh.
I think it's super important to not get really hung up on the competition or the bro culture and to just kind of keep the essence of what we're doing at the forefront is, like, we enjoy this because it is a joy,
Yes.
because it
Yes.
yeah, right? It keeps us centered. So I think especially beginners, that's like always my message is like don't get hung up on like big numbers or like grip and grin pictures and things like that because that's not what it's about.
Yeah. I mean, I do love a good grip and grin because it's something nice for me to look back on, but it's not
Oh yeah.
to other people. They don't care. They want to know about the experience more than anything.
Right. And
Yeah.
there's a hunting circle, right? So there's a hunting hoop.
Yeah.
So in the trajectory, we start out and people are like beginners, right? And maybe we're shooting a couple spike horns before we're progressing to a 5 point and then an 8 point and then
Uh-huh.
hopefully, a 10 point before we're teaching again the next person. And then it's kind of like focus back on like if this we can help this person harvest a buck, whether that's a spike horn or a 10 point, like they're harvesting something. So like there's nothing wrong with if you're experienced and you want to pursue something bigger. The thing that is important to remember is not to be judging other people as long as their harvests are ethical, as long as their harvests are legal, if they're taking joy in it, that's enough.
Yeah. Well, and there's just trying to find guests for the podcast. You go through this like every everybody's page says I'm a bow hunter, but all they have is deer. Like that every picture is a big buck, a big buck, a big buck. And it's like, okay, well, are you a bow hunter or are you a big buck hunter? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because because to me, like if you're gonna go bow hunt, if you're gonna call yourself a bow hunter, you should bow hunt is I mean, I get it. Some people don't want to bow hunt a bear or a turkey or whatever, but you should have a really well-rounded. I think doing a lot of things is going to make you a better bow hunter, a better deer hunter, and just really just have more fun in general. Because let's be real, chasing. I've done the chase a big buck thing, and obviously, I want to shoot a big buck when I go hunting. But it if you just get so zeroed in on just that, and you can't go outside that window and be like, okay, well, it's rifle season. I'm shooting whatever one comes by is gonna get it. If you can't
Yeah.
do that, it's not that fun.
Right. So it's like really keeping that the why and like the joy of it and everything at the forefront and just remembering it's not about flashy pictures on Instagram. Like it's about like doing it because we love it.
Yeah. Have you tried chasing a specific buck yet?
Last year, I did focus in on a specific buck, and he had showed up on the trail camera a couple times, and he was at this property, like a new property to me, and it seemed kind of like it was gonna be an easy deal. And somebody I know had taken a shot at him like halfway through the season, right? So like, and I helped that guy blood trail, and we had found the fur and everything indicated that he had shot way too high and
Uh-huh.
taken just a little scuff off the very top area.
Uh-huh.
So it was super like I was hopeful because like he was still out there and he did show up on the same trail camera with some fur off the top of his back. So he was still out there. So I had a lot of hope that like this deer was still um he was harvestable. And then I hunted this area hard for like the first second or the second half of the season after that happened and he never came back. I never saw him again. And then like the last day or the day before the last day of the season, somebody up the road off of this property killed him and I
Uh,
was so like I was so upset, like happy for that guy, but so upset really with myself that I had wasted so much of the season hyper focused on this deer because I passed up opportunities to fill my rifle tag with other bucks because I wanted this one. So it was kind of a lesson learned kind of thing. I'm sure I'll make that mistake again, but like, oh man, yeah, it hurt.
it's hard when you get pictures of them like that because they get
Mhm.
you excited. I love trail cameras. I love getting a picture of a deer. It's something to keep you excited. It's something to get you outside. Like, I mean, right now there's fishing and things like that to do, but if you really want to go on a good hike, you're probably not going in the middle of July unless you have a really good reason.
Yeah.
And trail cameras usually are a pretty good reason to get out if you have a lot of places to go that are far off and you know it's going to take you time. You want to start doing that stuff now.
Yeah, and it's such a motivation. Like we know
Mhm.
there are deer there, but like to see like the potential and see what you might be hunting that fall and know that like this is totally a legit possibility and these are nice deer. It gets your juices flowing. It's very motivating.
Yeah. It's just the one thing when you find that one buck that you're like, "I gotta have it." It's like then
Yes.
you're like, "Ah, kinda wish I
Yeah.
didn't have pictures of that one."
Mhm.
Uh, so I guess we'll talk a little bit about the NDA. So so you had your start in writing. You're obviously a super avid deer hunter. What was NDA something that you targeted?
No, not really. It had just kind of worked out really well where I had appeared years ago now on their Coffee and Deer podcast. And I had met the CEO and we'd had really cool conversation on that podcast and
I
kind of
listened
stayed.
to it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I had learned about the National Deer Association. I hadn't known much about it then, but after I learned about it, I kind of stayed plugged in as a member and was like paying attention to what was going on. And then when the opportunity came up for the Northeast Regional Director, it felt like a really cool challenge. I had done a lot of stuff in the sphere, but I hadn't really worked in the nonprofit portion of it. So I threw my hat in the ring there and it kind of worked out. And it was a great way to pull some of my other skills in that I wasn't utilizing in a different
Mhm.
way and learn more about the industry and really the National Deer Association and be on the inside of that work. So it's a great opportunity and I've been here about a year and a half or so and it's been great.
That's awesome. So for you, do you just focus on, like, the New York region, or are you kind of East Coast? What's
So I'm all Northeast. So I am all the way from
cool.
Maine over to Ohio, and then as far south, my most south state is Virginia. So everything within that is Northeast, and I oversee all of the volunteer operations, so our grassroots branches, and then fundraising, events, stuff like that. So a lot of day-to-day work is talking to my volunteers and helping them coordinate their events and see where they're at, what's going on in their neck of the woods, and that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
From state to state, is the deer hunting culture is it varied a lot, or is it pretty, you know, is it specific to
Yeah.
each state? Yeah.
It's wild to me actually because like, I knew, I guess, from afar how different the regions are in the country, but it was really been eye-opening to me how very like, the passions that people have just from region to region are totally different, and what's important to people region to region is totally different, and there's
Yeah.
been issues that have really never occurred to me living in New York that I have had to deal with that I never anticipated, like hound hunting, that was something that never I don't we don't have that in New York, so it was nothing that I had really ever thought about. And then like
Mhm.
New England is a totally separate culture from most of New York, and like things that happen in Ohio are totally different. And even like buck quality, buck ratio, things that are important to deer hunters, it's so different. And the things that our branches are working on are totally different state to state because of the different culture.
Yeah. That's something that's interesting too, hunting with hounds. That's something you can't do in Pennsylvania. You can't do that in New York, I'm assuming.
No.
And everybody wants to be, well, that's not fair. It's definitely it's still not easy. You know what I mean? Like, it's still an art form of deer hunting, and people that hunt with hounds, that's not something you just pick up and do. That's something you've learned as a generational thing. I think the states that it is legal in, it should remain that way, you know what I mean? Because it is something that's kind of a deep tradition, but any type of culture in deer hunting, you have to be really careful with all those things because it's delicate, you know?
It really is, and I will say that the National Deer Association has no official position statement on hunting with hounds, and
Sure.
it's one of those things where hunting is so intricately woven with our heritage and our tradition that
Yes.
so much of it is emotion based, and we connect the particular style that we hunt with our childhood or our families or our origins. And I think it's a lot of that state to state. Certainly hunting with hounds is a heritage culture way of hunting. And then up here in New York, New England, things like trekking in the snow, that a lot of that is tied to the heritage. It's a very
Yeah.
effective tactic, but it's also very nostalgic as well. And I think state to state, there's so much that we have to be very cognizant of is that deer hunting is heritage and it's emotion based a lot of times because of that.
Yeah. Well, for example, Pennsylvania got rid of they switched to a Saturday rifle opener, and that is a huge, huge controversial topic. And I don't really care. Me personally, I'm like, whatever, I'm gonna go deer hunting. Um, but that's a big deal to a lot of people because that was just, and I don't really understand why it matters what day it opens. Archery season opens on a different date every year. It's not, but uh just changing little things like that can really you have to be gentle with them because they can really hurt, or in some instances, they can help, but a lot of times they can hurt a culture.
Mhm.
Um, so what's the NDA's biggest mission statement? Do you have it?
So the National Deer Association is our mission is to ensure the health of wild deer, wildlife habitat, and the future of hunting. So that's what we do. All of our work is centered around that. So we have different pillars of like our work. So we have R3, like recruit, retain, reactivate. And that's a really big part of what we do. We've got the field to fork programs. We've got programs to help. Everything we do is for adult onset hunters or adult
Mhm.
hunters rather. We don't do a lot of youth hunting.
Yep.
But we have a whole entire department that works on that. And then we've got a lot of work that we do in disease and research, and we've got an entire department that works on that. And then we've got an entire department of like conservation. That's one of our pillars. So data collection and like habitat management and all of the things that are entailed with that. That's important as well.
Yeah.
And then education. A huge part of the National Deer Association is education. And our education is wide ranging. We have an entire database of articles and videos and all that kind of stuff on the website. But we also do a lot of in person seminars, either through national or through our branches. We have an entire Deer Steward 1, 2, and 3 course set up where we teach people how to be proper land managers and how to know about like setting things up so that your property is utilized for hunting and how to be a good and ethical hunter, stuff like that. We've got online courses. And then Deer Steward 2 is in person. Deer Steward 3 is a multi year certification that comes from applying the principles. We've got Learn and Burn. We just tons of education. So everything that we do is, and policy. We have an entire department that handles policy and legislation. So everything we do is centered around deer hunting and protecting it for the future.
That's the in-person stuff is so I've been on the website, obviously. It is such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to anything you wanna know about whitetails, not just hunting them, but anything you wanna know, and that's one thing that people that don't hunt don't understand how much we just love deer in general, not just killing deer.
Right, absolutely. It sounds ironic to the untrained ear, but deer hunters are some of the most passionate conservationists. We truly love the animals. We love deer. We love the other animals that we target. And then not just because they taste good, but because we have a respect for them. And it's something that really you have to kind of live that or at least observe it in person to understand.
Yeah. I mean, we just want the resource, you know?
Yeah,
What are 3 well, let's talk about some important things that are going on at NDA right now.
sure. So our branches, the Northeast branches specifically, are super busy this time of year. A lot of in-person events happening, both mission related, which is educational, and then fundraising, which is usually fun. So we've got our Vermont branch has a 3D archery shoot coming up at the end of July, and that's
Very cool.
looking, yeah, it's looking pretty good. Our Vermont branch is a brand new branch this year, so we're excited to see them like up and running.
Mhm.
The upstate New York branch has a clay shoot fundraiser coming up in September. We've got banquets happening this August in Maryland and Pennsylvania and Ohio. We've got educational events happening in all the other pockets of the region in Virginia and also Pennsylvania and New York. And uh, we've got a new branch starting up in Massachusetts. We've got a new branch starting up in West Virginia. So we're
Very
rocking
cool.
and rolling.
Yeah, I'll say, wow, busy, busy, busy.
Yeah.
What's the best way for people to get involved with NDA?
Ooh, so that's a good one. So there's several ways. A lot of people can go either to our website, deerassociation.com, and then click through the tabs and connect with us. That'll bring you, the user, to our director of grassroots policy, who will then redisperse you to the regional director that you should get plugged in with. In the Northeast, that would be me. Or you can reach out to me directly at megan@deerassociation.com. Or you can go through the Deer Association social channels. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We have an X account, things like that. Or you could go through any of the regional directors. We're on social as well, and we are definitely out there. So if anybody's interested in Deer Association, there's a lot of ways to connect.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to hear, is there anything else that you would like to mention about NDA before we go into the next part here?
I guess just one of the best ways to get involved is to attend an event. So, as a first step, if you're located in some of the areas where we're doing cool things, it'd be to show up and support the mission and learn about what's going on, and also to get plugged into other volunteers.
Very cool. So this is my favorite part of the podcast because it's really why I even listen to any podcasts. But I want to hear. We're gonna do two things because you're a well-rounded sportsman, in my opinion, sportswoman, and I think that you're gonna have some good ones here. So I want to hear. Actually, we'll do three things. I want to hear your favorite deer hunting story. I want to hear your favorite turkey story because I know you have like 85 of them from this spring. And and I want to hear a fishing story. It doesn't have to be from any time recently, but I want to hear a memorable moment in fishing.
Okay. Okay, so I guess we'll go deer first. So, one of the funnest, is that a word? I don't know. One of the funniest
I do that all
stories
the time.
that I've got is a recent one. So last fall, muzzleloader season, I was hunting, and I had harvested a doe, which was great. I was super excited about it. And I drive a Toyota RAV4. I don't have a pickup truck, so well, number one, I wanted some help dragging her up to where like she would get cleaned out and whatnot. Nobody answered
Mhm.
their phone, so I was just like, okay. So I dragged her up the hill all by myself, used all the muscles in my body, and was like, felt like, Xena the warrior princess. Cleaned her out all by myself, and then I got to the point where I'm like, now I gotta get her home, and, like, she's a mess, like, I don't know what to do here, like, I'm not in an area with, like, a hose, I'm in the wilderness. So I ended up, like, wrapping her in a tarp and, like, putting her in my Toyota RAV4, and, like, I rolled into my dad's house, and I was like, "I got a doe," and he's like, "Where?" And I'm like, "She's in the trunk," and, like, my daughter,
Oh,
like,
no.
is like, "What?" So, like, I felt like a goofball, like, with this, the deer in my trunk, but it worked out fine. The trunk was safe, there was no blood, well, there was a little blood, but, like, it got cleaned out. So it was just silly. And then, one of my favorite, turkey stories is really not mine. I mean, it is, but, like, it's more of, like, I witnessed it. So, I was up in Canada a couple years ago with my dear friend, Jacques, and she got her first turkey, and it was so, so cool to be there.
That's cool.
Yeah, as she, like, boom, 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 and, like, got this turkey, and it was the first thing she ever harvested in her whole life, and to see, like, the actual transition in real time from being, like, a novice to harvesting, and to see the difference in, like, how she felt about hunting, it was awesome. And,
Very cool.
I remember my first turkey too, which was the same year, but, like, the following month, because in, Canada it was April, and then here in New York it was May, and
Uh-huh.
I felt it for myself, so it was, like, such a cool season, like, we went from, like, not really knowing a whole lot to, like, harvesting turkeys, and, like, we were, like, on top of the world. And then, fishing, gosh, there's so many. One of my favorites, though, I guess, is when I'm, like, 4 or 5 years old, and I'm with my dad and my Uncle John, and we're in one of our favorite little lakes that we used to fish all the time, and I've got a Barbie pole, so, like, it's, like, one of the really small ones, and it's, like, super
Yeah.
lightweight, and and we're fishing largemouth, and I got this huge largemouth on my pole, and it was like, this little pole had, like, everything to stay in one piece, and I was like, it felt like eternity, but I was 5, so it was probably like 5 minutes, if that,
Yeah.
but I felt like I was whaling or reeling in like a whale, and I finally got it, and finally got it, and finally got it, and finally got it, and, like, everyone's cheering, my uncle and my dad are like, "Woohoo," and, like, I got this bass, and to me, it was the biggest thing I had ever seen in my entire life, and
Uh-huh.
it was, like, one of those moments that becomes, like, epic family lore, where, like, we still talk about this gigantic bass that I caught when I was, like, a little girl,
Yeah.
and it was awesome, and it's, like, one of those things that you kinda, like, always compare everything else to. So, it was a great fish, and I'm super excited about it, and it was, like, before cell phones, right? So, like, there's no
Mhm.
picture of it. My dad
Yeah.
didn't have, like, a windy
Yeah.
camera back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because of that, because there's no picture, I'm sure this bass has grown every year in the stories. But, I
The
mean,
fish
that's
story,
part
they
of it.
always do, yeah. That's
Yeah, so it's been great, and I've had some really fun times, fishing and hunting and all of it.
I love your stories there because nothing was about the I mean, it could have been about a big buck or whatever. Even if you told that story, the thing that mattered to you most about all of them was the experience and the little details. Like, you remember it took everything for that little fishing rod to not break apart. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
that's the cool part is remembering the stories for the experience and not just whatever is hanging up over there, you know? The
Mhm.
things that we put on the wall are important too, I think, because it is a good keepsake. It is a good way to, you know, feel it, look at it, remember it, and that's cool too, but it's not the real important part.
Right. Absolutely.
So, uh, Lake Champlain, Vermont side or New York side?
You probably wouldn't believe this, but I have never fished Lake Champlain.
What?
I know. It's
Oh boy,
wild, right? I
you gotta
mean,
get there.
I'm hoping so. My boyfriend's from Vermont, so, like, I could be, like, on either side.
Yeah, the Vermont side is pretty good. The Vermont side is pretty good. I've been there once, and it's a great lake. We actually went at a really bad time, and it was still great. But
I've heard awesome stories. I mean, yeah, I'm overdue.
if you are going to tell somebody you need to go fish in New York, which direction are you gonna point them? It doesn't have to be specific.
Adirondacks.
Adirondacks. Very
Mhm.
cool. I've always done, like, the Finger Lakes thing because
Oh.
they're close, so, like, 4 hour ride, so, I fished like 4 or 5 of the Finger Lakes and, you know, Oneida is pretty easy to get to from here,
Yeah.
St. Lawrence River, but they're all different, they're all unique, they're all very, very windy,
Oh, yeah.
but, New York New York has a lot of wind, but, yeah, it's just New York is definitely a s it's I think there's 2 parts to New York, you know, you have the eastern side of the Adirondacks kinda side, and then you have that western part of New York, it's very different.
It really
They're
is.
Yeah, they're different worlds. But the fishing in New York is outstanding, and everything has its own unique thing about it.
Yeah, and that's something that is, like, it's hard to even like, people are like, "Okay," but it's true because, like, I've been to Western New York, and I've been, Lake Chautauqua fishing for muskies, and then I've been up to the Northern Adirondacks fishing backwoods for brook trout, and then I've been down in the souther version of New York fishing for smallmouth, and then, Central New York fishing for largemouth, and there's just and, pike and Great Sacandaga. So, like,
Mhm.
there are so many different species to target, and it really is like you can go a mile or an hour, like, north or an hour, south and be in a totally different world.
Yeah. What's something new that you wanna try in 2025 for as far as hunting and/or fishing?
Yeah, I would love to get a buck doing the snow tracking. I've done it, in other ways, and I would love to have little bit of success with that.
Yeah, you live in a definitely good place for that kinda thing.
Yeah.
Um, is there, uh I guess the other thing I wanted to know too, I forgot to ask it earlier about Artemis, is there a way for people to get involved with that as well?
Definitely. So, that's a simple way to like, I would connect with our socials, and then there's on the website, there's a ton of information about like what's going on and who to get plugged into. There's 3 different ambassadors now in New York. So, like, we've got folks kind of all over this state. You could get connected with an Artemis ambassador, but also in all the other states as well. We've got plenty spread out all over the country. We're national, so we're all over the place. So the first step would be to connect with our socials and then to connect with the local ambassador, and then pay attention to when we post about new events happening, show up to an event. That's the best way.
Very cool. Megan, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, definitely. So the easiest way to find me is on Instagram, probably. I'm at Megan underscore Pleat. And then my byline is in tons of publications if you wanna read up on the stuff I'm writing about, and then if you
She's
wanna talk
everywhere.
everywhere, exactly. And then the National Deer Association, I'm on there, so you know, I'm very easy to find.
Cool. Megan, I appreciate your time so much. This has been fun.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Well, that's a wrap in camp. Thanks for listening. Go ahead and check out Artemis Sportswomen and the National Deer Association at thenationaldeerassociation.com. Follow Megan at Megan Plete. I think it's Megan_Plete on Instagram. And if you would, please follow the show, like and subscribe it. Give us a review, give us a rating. Let us know what you want to hear about. You can email me at incamppodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at incamp_podcast. I really appreciate you guys tuning in every week. It's been a lot of fun so far. So we'll talk to you soon. This is In Camp Podcast.